One of the most interesting hands of my career, definitely the most interesting hand I've played this year, and maybe terrible. Yo guys, Benababby here, welcome back to the channel, and I hope you are all doing okay. It has been such a long time since I posted a video. Many of you who have messaged me, and I think that's fairly warranted, and let me explain what has been going on. YouTube is just making it so difficult for poker content creators. Not only with like age restrictions, but with kind of strikes and ban hammers, and you just don't know where you stand with YouTube at any time, and you could just be in the firing line next. With that in mind, I just want to kind of put this disclaimer out that this video is for entertainment purposes only, and I am not promoting gambling, but mainly just to let you all know that I'm going to have to be really careful with the content that I post on this channel moving forward. I'm obviously keeping it fairly vague because I don't want to get this video struck down, but I just want to let you know that's kind of where I'm standing at the moment. Secondly, I've been spending the whole summer over in the UK attending my best mate's wedding, and on that note, in this photo we have some of the most old school, most legendary poker players. If any of you can guess every single person in this photo, you are a true OG of the game. Other than that, I've just been spending time with family, spending time with friends, and just having a really long break. With all that aside though, the objective now is to grind super hard through to the end of the year and also be putting out weekly videos as well. We've got some really good guests coming on the channel over the next few months, including Clanty, Gazzy B, Lacomzy, Schrodinger's VIP. So definitely make sure you are subbed to the channel because I want to make sure as many of these videos are going to out as many of you as possible. Let's get on into some hands that I have been keeping in the vaults for a rainy day. So first up today, we've got a very special one, and we have got pocket nines in the cutoff. We get a limp from Hijack, who is a recreational on probation. That is my dark green tag. We ISO to 5x. That's because we're a bit deeper, and this is going to be my normal size. And we get re-ISO to 15 big blinds from a reg in the small blind. Now, this tag on this reg shouldn't be the light blue tag. This player is definitely much more aggressive than the tag would suggest. Either way, I think we just have a very mandatory call, and I do just that. We see 8-3 deuce rainbow, and villain checks it on over to us. I think you can go both ways here, but I do decide to check my hand on this occasion. The turn is an 8 of clubs, bringing a flush draw, pairing the top card, and our villain gets out the 1.3 pot on the turn. To be honest with you, the spot is not super thrilling already, but I do think that given the nature of the re-ISO pre-flop, I don't see how I can fold my hand, not to mention that this player is relatively active, so yeah, I do decide to call always. We see what seems to be a very bad river in the ace of clubs, and villain tanks for quite a long time before blocking the river. Now you can see where my mouse goes immediately over the fold button to press fold, and then I allow myself, which is obviously very good, to think about the decision in a little bit more depth. So what do we make of the re-ISO pre-flop into the turn overbet? I think it's very conceivable that we can assume that people in the small blind in this node are going to find flop checks with hands like pocket aces, pocket kings, pocket queens, maybe pocket jacks, with the intention of check raising. And also I think it's pretty conceivable that those hands can also overbet the turn. So I'm not ruling that out whatsoever. What I am curious about in my tank is on the ace of clubs, what happens to those combos and how does villain react when I'm talking about the value region? I think it's fair to say they probably would bet pocket aces for this sizing on the river. It's extremely hard for them to get called. They probably get shoved on by flushes, and it just definitely feels to me like the correct or best sizing. The other thing to mention is that when I call the turn, what does my range look like? My range looks like a bunch of pocket pairs, as well as a load of flush draws, and also we could even have some 8x as well. Although admittedly, maybe not so much, because we probably only defend the 8-7 suited pre. What this generally boils down to for me is when we get re-ISO'd after I have ISO'd a recreational, we can probably attribute more offsuit combos to the small blind's range. I'm talking hands like king queen offsuit, queen jack suited, king queen suited, etc. Now you might say that only the club varieties are going to bet the turn, and potentially that is true, but I think like a hand like king queen of hearts here makes a relatively good bluff on the turn regardless. The last thing to mention is I don't really see Ace X choosing to bet the turn for this very big sizing. A hand like Ace King or Ace Queen doesn't make a huge amount of sense. A hand like Ace 5 probably does just bet the flop. I think that's just a bit more intuitive. So if they lack the Ace X region and also don't really get to value bet the middle pocket pair region, I was just pretty suspicious of this spot. We also do unblock bluffs here. I know that's a very, very kind of like cop-out thing to say, but we don't block any value. But given that they can't bluff with a 9 and they definitely can bluff with a hand like King Jack or King Queen offsuit, I think this makes a better call than a hand like pocket jacks, for example. I think I would obviously rather call like pocket 10s with a club, and I'm not going to make an argument that I don't think that that's a better hand, because it definitely is, but I can't just only call those hands and nothing else. With that in mind, after a very long tank call, I think I tanked for 70 seconds or my entire time bank, I do end up making the call. And on this occasion, we do find King Club Queen, which seems like a pretty good bluff. Let me know what you think about this one. Very, very, very curious one for me. And next up is a little bit of a respite hand before we get back into the bluffing madness. We've got Ace 4 of diamonds on the button. We get an open from a very aggressive reg on the button, and we get a 3-bet from the cutoff. Now, the dark green tag again is the recreational probation, but I have since upgraded, or should I say downgraded, this player to a thing. I have absolutely no idea whether or not this player is more reggy, more recreational, but what I do know is that on this day, they were blowing up hardcore. We're talking like this 3-bet here would probably be hands like Jack 10 offsuit, etc. So I do decide to 4-bet. Having an ace seems pretty good. I'm getting pretty out of line. Obviously, this is just very, very exploitative. But yeah, I go ahead and 4-bet ace 4 suited to the small sizing. We do flop second pair on a 9-4 deuce with a flush draw, and I decide to bet the flop pretty small. I think the small bet doubles up as a fairly nice exploit, simply because the general sizing here, if I've got an overpair, is going to be bigger. It's going to be more like half pot. This is a spot where the board is going to change pretty drastically, and I want to push my equity. However, I don't have a hand that I want to push my equity with. I have a medium strength hand that I want to gain information with. I bet small on the flop, they snap called. We can probably assume they do have a bunch of draws, some pocket pairs, but also, given how this player was playing on this day, a load of random other nonsense combos as well. So we do see a Jack of Hearts. I think we've kind of got our value with the hand that we have, and therefore I'm going to check and hope for a clean river and either call the river bet or just check back if check 2. The river is a supreme brick in the 2 of clubs, and again, given how this player was playing, I'm not prepared to fold this hand. I unblock the bluffs so incredibly well from the spades and the hearts and floats, 6-5, etc., that I don't waste any time in calling. And on this occasion, we do run into the 8-7 of diamonds, and I think, let's be results oriented. We played this very, very well. Next up, we've got King 10 of spades, and this is, if not one of the most interesting hands of my career, definitely the most interesting hand I've played this year, and maybe terrible. So we get over from MP, who is a BitB coach, absolutely loves slandering millions of coaches in my Discord chats. If you haven't joined already and you would like to see that, definitely get involved. We then get called by a huge recreational on the button, full green tag, 64 VPIP, running hot. So I go ahead and squeeze King 10 of spades. Some merits calling pre-flop, but I think squeezing is going to be the very best play. We go 3-way to the flop and we see Ace King 4 with 2 diamonds. Now you might argue that this is a range bet, but I think you probably are going to be playing some checks here. Not because we don't have the advantage, which we definitely do in the top end of the range, but I'm going to be squeezing very, very wide here, and also MP is still going to be calling very good hands pre-flop. I actually think MP's meant to call some pocket aces here simply because I'm going to be squeezing so wide, and the value is coming from the recreational, who's going to fold nothing behind. It checks all the way through, recreational snap checks back the flop, and we see a Queen of Hearts on the turn. Don't think there's anything to say at this point in the hand with King 10 of spades. It makes a very mandatory check, but I will come to my turn construction in just a moment. Now MP thinks about it for a little while and bets 40% pot, and the recreational snap folds, which we are not surprised about when they snap check the flop. So I'm just going to talk about where my thought process was in game. Obviously on the turn we are going to play some raises because we're not range betting the flop and we naturally arrive with some hands in our range that we want to raise the turn with. The question is, what are those hands? So in my mind here, when I hold a queen on the turn, I'm probably going to start bluffing some of the time. Not because I think imposition has any pocket queens. I do think that is one of the hands that's going to 4-bet pre-flop. It's a little bit too vulnerable to just call. But because they are going to check the flop with a bunch of combos that are going to contain aces, kings, as well as straights like Jack 10 of spades, Jack 10 of hearts, and Jack 10 of clubs. And I can see how it might look like having a queen is better here, because then we block hands like ace queen that in position can conceivably have. However, I don't think those really exist. I think they exist pre-flop, but I don't see how they're ever going to check the flop after it gets checked to them. So I'm kind of ruling hands out like ace queen. So actually holding a queen here is kind of a bait card to hold, because I don't feel that it actually contributes to any of the value range here from imposition. And the other thing that I just alluded to was that holding the 10 obviously does block a straight, which is super relevant. Therefore, if we've ruled out a lot of combos like ace queen and also we do block a straight, then that naturally does weight imposition's range here to being more combos like naked ace jack and ace 10. Obviously we do block a combo of ace 10, but then also some combos like ace 5 of hearts, for example. I don't see hands like ace 4 or pocket 4s really existing in the imposition range. I think those just make very intuitive bets on the flop just to gain max value from the recreational player. Therefore, I decided that this was going to be the combo that I raised the turn with. After a bit of a tank, imposition does call and we see a pretty dicey 2 of hearts on the river. So I'm going to make an assumption here. Looking at this hand as a viewer, you're probably thinking we're going to get snapped off by a flush a lot of the time here and we probably want to have a heart. My concern here is it is basically impossible for me to hold a heart outside of exactly king jack with the jack of hearts. We may have raised the turn with that hand, which I think would be conceivable, but we also block ace jack of hearts, so I would definitely rather have the jack of hearts. I just thought that with half pot behind, I don't really have much choice but to shove hands like sets and straights on the river. But maybe now that I'm looking at it, could we just check folds or maybe block super tiny? In game, I did decide to go for the shove in the end, and we do get turbo snap called by the nut, which is ace 10 of hearts. I think this hand is super interesting because it's unbelievably difficult to be able to figure out exactly what is going on in game, and of course I couldn't. However, I do feel that this is going to be a very underbluff spot, at least on the turn, so maybe I should just be giving up the river and having discipline there. Let me know what you guys think. This is a very long hand, but I really hope you enjoyed it. And here we are with pocket sevens in MP on a 2KNL table. We get open from a reg under the gun and we decide to cold call next position. Also with the recreational who has more than 150 big blinds, who is in every single hand. We flop a beautiful second set on 8-7-3 rainbow, and because the recreational is super stab happy, I decide to make a little check to get involved with a check raise. We do get a bet of 40% pot in the cutoff and a snap call from the button. This is being teed up extremely nicely, and I raise it up pretty chunky to $295. Recreational doesn't waste any time before calling, and we see a 4 of diamonds on the turn. Now, honestly, this player will definitely have 6-5 offsuit pre-flop, but they will also just never fold an 8 or 2 overs and a straight draw or anything like that. So I decide to go with a very custom full pot on the turn, and villain wastes no time at all before shipping it in. We are going to lose sometimes, but on this occasion, they do have 8-4 of spades for the 6.5k pot, and fortunately, we do hold on both runouts. Now, if you thought the last hand was contentious, then you're probably gonna not be very happy with this one. And I gotta say, I'm not super thrilled with my thought process in this one, but I'm just gonna be honest and we're gonna run it. So we get open from a reg under the gun, kind of standard reg, definitely can have some spice in them, but isn't like super outlandish and definitely isn't a nit either. I think the tag on this player is not really fully fair. We get cold call from a proper recreational in MP, running 45% VPIP, and we go ahead and squeeze King Jack offsuit. I think you could make arguments for calling this hand, but given the recreational profile, I think King Jack just does make a very good 3-bet, so I decided just to do this always. We do see Ace, Jack, 8 rainbow, and villain checks to us, and I decide to bet 25% pot with range on the flop. So obviously this is a little bit different to the other one because we are now heads up and we're also in position. So that is why I went with a range bet on this board. Again, we do have second pair, so there's some consistency there, I guess. Villain now doesn't waste too much time before digging out the check raise. So I think this is where maybe my first mistake is, and that is I should probably just fold the flop. But I'm going to tell you what I was thinking in game, and maybe you think it's bad logic. I thought this hand made a way better call than ace-king. That might sound stupid because obviously relative hand strength, this is a lot worse, but I don't believe out of position ever has pocket aces, but definitely does have pocket jacks as well as ace jack. So when we do have ace king or ace queen, we only block one combo of ace jack. So I just think that this hand is a better continuer, or at least that was what I was thinking. The other reason was because I figured that there was a chance that out of position was just playing continue via folding or raising as well. So I did attribute a few more spicy bluffs, not to mention that I'm going to be a bit wider pre and they know that, so therefore they may end up bluffing a little bit more. But I'm just giving you my thoughts in game, so we go ahead and continue. Turn is a queen of clubs, and now we're expecting to see some bets, but also a lot of checks. The reason I say we're expecting to see some bets is because a lot of their value hands on the flop, well, actually, one of their value hands on the flop, which is ace jack, has shrunk drastically and now is into like a very, very cornered position. However, a combo like pocket eights or pocket jacks probably is still worth a bet. Once they do check to us, I decide to go with a bluff on the turn with this combo. The reason I'm betting the turn here is because I'm simply blocking a lot of the check shoves from out of position, which is exclusively pocket jacks, but more importantly, king 10 of clubs. The other and most important thing to mention is that I can see out of position here check raising the flop with a hand like king queen, for example, which we are now overtaken by. And obviously when we hold the king of clubs, they can have more of the spade and diamond and maybe even the heart varieties. So what I decided to do is go with the 20% bet size on the turn with the intention of following through on some rivers, mainly clubs. Villain tanks for not very long and ends up calling. So we see an 8 of hearts on the river and it checks on over to us. Now looking at this now, I definitely do have some showdown versus basically exclusively jack 10 of clubs. Now if the approach from villain was to play raise fold on the flop, then there are going to be some combos like ace 10, jack 10, queen jack, even a hand like king jack. So I think what I'm trying to say is maybe now looking at this, I probably should give up the river, but I did feel that in game, it was quite likely that out of position was going to fast play turn or check shove turn with their very good hands. And I felt that therefore their hand was much more weighted towards some kind of showdown value. Again, super contentious. Definitely let me know what you think about this hand because I'm still really unsure. Ultimately, after a bit of a tank, I do shove it in for half pot and we do get a snap fold, which probably suggests that it was exactly jack 10 of clubs. So I'm not gonna lie, that is a pretty horrible selection of hands as a welcome back to YouTube, but I had to show you guys the hands in the vaults because otherwise they would never have seen the light of day. Really hope you enjoyed today's episode. I'm going to be back to posting regularly. If you haven't already, please do go ahead and drop me a sub. But until next time, take care, and I will see you at the tables.